Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Knockout Podcast, episode 43. We're back for another episode. We are returning after UFC 257. McGregor fought, and unlike we predicted, well, in fact, unlike a lot of our predictions, actually, there was very much a theme. But yeah, he was defeated by Dustin Poirier. We'll get into all that and more. Obviously, I'm joined by Jack. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, and I'm doing even better considering that I was very happy when Dustin Poirier knocked out Conor McGregor. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I jumped up out my seat. So yeah, it's been a pretty good few days having time to kind of digest that and kind of really get over it that Dustin Poirier did it, and it's fantastic, and I loved it.
Yeah, I'm no McGregor super fan, but nor am I a sort of ardent anti-McGregor. But I think just the story and how sort of Poirier's been sort of grinding away for so many years. I think I read in Forbes that he'd been paid £1 million for this fight, sort of before pay-per-view bonuses and sort of pay-per-view credits. Is that what they're called? I can't remember what they're called again.
Pay-per-view
points.
Point.
Yeah, that's the one. So he got a big payday, which is always great to see, and managed to cap it off in quite fantastic style. We'll get to that. Well, we'll probably start with that. Got Michael Chandler, who defeated Dan Hooker, and the rest of the stuff on the card. But I guess we should probably start with Poirier and McGregor. It is the pressing matter. I mean, we both sort of thought that McGregor might be a bit too much. He might have that counter punching. And early on, his power against Dustin Poirier, who can take some shots, but that wasn't to be. I mean, the leg kicks is probably the obvious place to start because that was something that we mentioned as a possible route and something that was used by Dustin Poirier in the first fight all those years ago, and it was clear from sort of the midpoint of the first round that those kicks were really taking a detrimental effect on Conor.
Yeah, I think the leg kicks are obviously very important, but I think it's, in a way, it kind of is important to zoom out and look at just the overall kind of Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier's pinned tweet on Twitter is still, and has been for years, I think it was after he got knocked out by Michael Johnson, it still says it's all about perseverance. And that is kind of just the story of Dustin Poirier. He's a guy that's been knocked out quite a few times, has been beaten by much worse fighters than he is currently, but he just steadily continued to get better and improve and just work on his overall game. And it's really kind of paid dividends and come up in a big way on Saturday. So yeah, all fair play to Dustin Poirier in the world. It was fantastic. But yeah, I think we did get it wrong. We did think that McGregor was going to knock out Poirier. Both of us did. But we did mention a few things that Poirier could do to have a better performance and to win, potentially. And he did most of them, which is so we did kind of get the result wrong, but the overall kind of way that the fight played out was similar to what we said or what we thought would happen. So it's a success in some way.
Yeah.
Take all the wins that we can. But yeah, it was the thing that surprised me is that the Poirier did eat quite a few shots from McGregor, and I just didn't think he'd be able to take them. But considering kind of his new frame, and really he's grown into 155 at this point, to the point of being one of the bigger 155ers there is, that he's just able to take them better now than he could do at featherweight, as well as kind of overall improvements in his boxing skill means that he can see punches coming a bit more clearly and is able to just slightly make the slight adjustments so it didn't knock him out like it did before. So yeah, that was what really surprised me. And after that, we did say that Poirier, if he can survive kind of the initial onslaught, he could really get to work. And that's kind of what he did, but even earlier than I expected him to.
Yeah, I really thought we were going to see Poirier come into this fight really in his own, sort of later in those rounds, as McGregor sort of tired or at least as Poirier sort of worked his way in. yeah, as you said, the leg kicks, the wrestling we talked about a bit, which you did go to at the end of the first round, I think. Yeah, I
It was at
just
the
thought,
start of the first round. It was quite early.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
it was. And like kind of on that note, it was something similar we mentioned a few weeks ago in the Max Holloway podcast when he brutally took apart Calvin Kattar. One of the things that we brought up was that what Max Holloway did was that he introduced like almost all of his threats in the first round. So anything that he was going to threaten Kattar with, he introduced very early on. And that allows you to later in the fight, it's put that threat in the opponent's mind, and then you can play your other strikes and other things off of those threats. And that's what Poirier did early on here. He leg kicked very early. The other key to victory was almost as important as the leg kicks, was the counter right hook, which he landed a number of times to great effect. And then, yeah, the other thing was that early on, Poirier likes to shift in his combinations a lot, and the way that he set up the takedown just looked like one of his shifting combinations, but instead he ducked in and instead he kind of just pursued the takedown instead of coming up with like a left hook, say. So he put all those threats in Conor's mind very early. And yeah, the takedown threat, even though he didn't do much with it, kind of threw Conor off a bit. You could tell that he was wary of that and really backed off whenever Dustin kind of like feinted shifting combinations, which he did a number of times after that. So yeah, it was set up his threats early and then play them off of each other. And he did that very well.
Yeah, no, it was really sort of testament to, all we were saying, how I think perhaps a lot of people coming into this fight, maybe those who haven't sort of watched Dustin Poirier's career as closely as perhaps McGregor's, would have seen that first fight. And we said this is a Dustin Poirier that has evolved so much. And I think even in this fight, I saw an even better implementation of a game plan, against Hooker was a good fight. I just think on that night he was the better fight because he just has the better fundamentals. I think, I think Poirier on this night, I think he proved he is the better fighter, but he game planned to a T. We said, as he said, got everything early. Those leg kicks, the takedown, the counter right hook, they were all there, and it was just masterful to watch and really good to watch a guy that I think has always had his sort of capabilities sort of underestimated and sort of underpraised. He is this brawler who can go into fights with Dan Hooker and have 5-round wars like that, but he's also a guy that knows what he's doing, knows how to set up his shots, and knows how to plan a fight like that, because you just saw what he can do. It was amazing to see.
It's like, like earlier on in his career, like say after the first McGregor loss, it seemed that he might have been on the trajectory of like never really reaching the elite and just becoming kind of like a permanent, like defined action fighter. Always in good fights, like the Korean Zombie fight was fantastic, but never really reaching the elite. However, he kind of maintained the like attributes of being an action fighter, just really sharpened them up. To the point that he was able to compete with the best of the best. And if you look at the story of Dustin Poirier's career, it's truly inspiring. Like fantastic stuff. So yeah, like brilliant stuff. And just
Hats off.
Yeah, brilliant. Like he just came in so sharp. Like the way that, like whenever McGregor would throw a straight left, obviously his most dangerous punch, Poirier would very often kind of return with a jab just to like never let him get away with anything for free. And then whenever McGregor's boxing is best at long range, so when he can kind of measure you and then come in with the long left hand, when he tries to combo in the pocket, that was when Poirier had good success with the right hook. He had very good head movement in this fight, really made McGregor miss quite a lot. And then at the finishing sequence, he made McGregor miss quite a number of punches, leg kicked him, and then angled out with the right hook to turn McGregor onto the fence, which was one of the things we also said that Poirier would have good success in, which is pushing McGregor back and putting his back on the fence. He didn't do that as much as I thought he would, which is perhaps where we got kind of the directionality of the fight wrong. But the overall skill, like the overall kind of tactics, we were fairly on the money with. and then from that a fairly brutal finishing sequence, and it was just poured it on, finished him in fairly emphatic fashion. I was very impressed with I can't really overstate how impressed I was with Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
Really exceeded my expectations, and he's just someone that you can never doubt. Even he looked to maybe be on kind of downward, kind of not downward spiral, but he's over the hill kind of in terms of his career. The Dan Hooker fight maybe was harder than it maybe should have been in terms of peak Poirier, but really showed that you cannot count out Dustin Poirier. And I was over the moon. It was fantastic.
No, I mean you look at his Wikipedia, and he's now you're looking in those last sort of 5 fights or so, you're looking at 6 if you go back, Pettis, Gaethje, Alvarez, Holloway, Khabib, Hooker, McGregor. There's 1 loss in there. I mean, that is almost as good as it gets of a sort of a 5-fight run, 6-fight run.
Genuinely, Dustin Poirier probably has the second best lightweight resume of all time. After Khabib, it's a fair argument, I would say, to say Dustin Poirier is the second best lightweight of all time at this point. Gaethje, who's fantastic. Alvarez, who's an all-time great in his own right. Holloway, who's one of the top 5 best ever, although at featherweight. But he beat him at lightweight in a brilliant fight where Max still looked very good. Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor. Those wins, you really cannot argue with that. He's probably, for my money, the second best lightweight of all time after Khabib. And it will be interesting to see what he does next. If I were to, it's difficult. If I were to bet on it from what Poirier wants, I think he wants the McGregor rematch, because after the first time Nate, the time that Nate beat Conor, he had so much more bargaining power going into the rematch that he got a massive payday in the rematch. And now Dustin Poirier has all that bargaining power as well, and can, if he fights McGregor again, the amount of money he'll make will be just double his career earnings in one fight. So
I sort of thought it like that. I think you certainly raised a valid point that I think probably what's been talked about is sort of Poirier, Oliveira, and I think Poirier said as much as saying, respect to Michael Chandler, who we'll get onto in a minute. But if he's fighting anyone for the belt, it's going to be Charles Oliveira or perhaps Gaethje. But I'm not really sure what's going on with Gaethje, and I guess he has, he is coming off a loss and a shot at the title. But yeah, I think if he's fighting for the title, obviously he's got to be in there, and it's got to be probably Oliveira. But yeah, I think if we're thinking about that title shot might always be around, and you've got to go in confident in a McGregor trilogy fight.
Yeah.
Why would he not go in confident, knowing that he's going to make a bag load of money? Even win or loss, his name goes up. His name value goes up, exponentially. And as you say, if you get that other win, then you really are set. So it'll be interesting. For McGregor, the fight itself, I know there's been a lot made of his performance, and I think we've been as I wanted to talk about what Poirier did right, because ultimately McGregor's no slouch, and Poirier had to be good to beat him.
Oh yeah.
I think watching the fight and then watching it back, and I know quite a lot's been made of his stance and his bouncing. I'm not sure I agree too much with the whole stance thing. I think he's always had that. The only thing that surprised me was how little he was moving his front foot, not only in terms of checking the kicks, because I've got to assume he knew they were coming, although I'm not sure he did, given how badly he adapted, but also the lack of kicks he threw himself. Not even he's not exactly a big leg kicker in sort of the Poirier sense, but just sort of the front kicks to keep people at distance. Just those sort of stay busy kicks that I think maybe if you look at sort of the Poirier, the sort of McGregor Holloway fight, that sort of sticks in my mind as one that he used a lot of kicks. maybe it's a different era, and I think he certainly has become more of that like real MMA boxer.
Yeah.
But I was surprised with the lack of kicks and that sort of how planted that front foot was.
Yeah, McGregor's talked a lot in kind of like the post-fight about the leg kicks and said that basically he was not prepared for calf kicks. And if that is true, then that is a massive indictment of his camp, and he should like pack up and never go train at SBG again, because they've been fairly big and like since like 2015, 2016, and have been
like that is the thing. You look at anyone who's doing well. Gaethje, my God, he packs a punch. Volkanovski, Poirier, Holloway, anyone. It is the sort of the MMA meta at the minute is those low kicks.
Yeah, though, like some like target the thigh more than others, but yeah, like the real in the past like 3 years, it has become a fundamental part of like the MMA meta. Yeah, you're right. The low calf kicks. So if he wasn't prepared for that, then he should never train at SBG again, because that's abysmal. Like truly woeful preparation if that's true. And like they're very popular at ATT, and he knows that we're Dustin Poirier trained. So like if they weren't expecting that, like I don't know, like we could train him better. So I don't know if that's true. I think it just could be a McGregor excuse in a way, because the leg kicks were very important. But as I said, he was getting countered consistently and getting outboxed in the pocket as well. So it's not like that came after Poirier had success with the leg kicks, but it's not like it was just the leg kicks. There were other components of the game plan that Poirier worked beautifully in. So you can't just say it's that. And like also people have possibly said that it like McGregor didn't look very good, or like I think McGregor looked good, but I don't think he came in with a good game plan. Like it was fairly like physically and kind of how fast he looked and fit, like really kind of terms of his power as well. Like he looked fairly peak McGregor, to be honest. It was just
I thought so as well. And also like I know there's an argument of like people saying, oh, he wasn't motivated, but like, okay, you can say with the Khabib fight, okay, maybe he was motivated, but that fight was a fight that needed to happen. If McGregor didn't need to fight, Dustin Poirier does nothing for him. He's not got the backstory that the Khabib fight or the name recognition or the record that Khabib did. This fight does nothing for McGregor unless he is invested in getting the title back.
Yeah, so unless he wants to fight again. Yeah,
exactly.
Unless he wants to fight again, he would not have took this fight with Dustin Poirier. Him taking this fight showed that he, at least to a degree, was motivated and wants to kind of get back in winning ways. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't pay much mind to that. It was just that Dustin Poirier was on the night better. Like, there's essentially no other way around it. But no, I don't know. I don't know what McGregor would do going forward. As you said, yeah, like kind of with the kicking, he did kick a lot less in this fight. Like he had a lot of low kicks in the Diaz fight, but that's because he was fighting Diaz. But like in the rest of his career, kind of coming up, he used the like kind of left high kick to kind of really corral opponents. I think he threw one in this fight. And then against Chad Mendes, you saw he used kind of like the long teep or long kind of snap kick, similar thing. Like he used that really well. He didn't use that at all in this fight. So yeah, he was kicking a lot less. And that kind of he's done that basically since, kind of what the Alvarez fight or since the Aldo fight, I suppose. See, I think, I don't know, how Conor could like adapt and not take the leg kicks is an interesting one, because he tried countering it fairly consistently and he tried catching it a lot, and it didn't really seem to do much. You could possibly say it was too little too late. He only really started trying to counter and catch them after they'd already done significant damage. So maybe if he really got on that early, it could shut it down from Poirier a bit earlier. But then another thing that he could do is, as he said kind of with his own kicks, is that when Nate Diaz fought Anthony Pettis, the way he shut down the leg kicks was he really kind of, and a similar way to kind of what Holloway did against Volkanovski the second time, was that if you play a much more like active lead leg game with like you're playing teeps off of it and you're kind of lifting it up and you're much lighter on that, then kicks really don't become as much of a problem. So yeah, if he could incorporate kind of some much more like front leg kicks into his game for the rematch, then if there is a rematch, then that could serve him probably quite well. But that's if like this loss, I don't like. He might not want to fight again. It's very possible that we don't know what he wants to do after this. He does have enough money, obviously. So like he could legitimately like retire for real this time. But he said he wanted the rematch back, but like the way he said that he wanted the Nate rematch, like seemed a lot different to the way he's kind of talked about getting the Poirier rematch back. He was much more determined to get the Nate rematch back than this one. And in a way, that's maybe because he's probably more soundly beaten this time, or just kind of where he is mentally. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he does going forward.
Yeah, we'll pay attention. I mean, hopefully, if he does come back, that's the fight. I mean, I know there's been talk of completing the Diaz trilogy. I think personally, I'd like to see this fight again. Probably more for sort of Poirier's sake, to be honest. See him get a good payday, but yeah, we'll see. You never really know with McGregor, so I think sort of waiting is best. But yeah, sort of to conclude, it's just two good fighters, and at the end of the day, Poirier just game planned the hell out of it, and that is, I think that's something that perhaps is becoming slow. Like we're seeing that side of MMA where it's not just sort of like, I've got my skills, you've got your skills, let's just clash and see who's better. I think we are really now seeing the tactical evolution of I've got my skills, you've got your skills. How can I best negate your skills and best sort of bring out my skills? And I think this was the perfect example of it.
Yeah, and that is becoming, obviously, like good fighters have done that for a long time. Yeah. It is becoming more common. And the best kind of fights are the fights that you'll see where fighters both come in with a good game plan to like negate their opponent's skills and emphasize theirs. And then over time, like think Aldo Mendez 2 is kind of one like this. Great fight. Both come in with a good game plan, and then they have to adapt it and tweak it mid-fight on the fly to kind of really best like suit it to the current like moment. And they're the best kind of fights you'll see. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully, like as that becomes more common, hopefully more fighters go in with good game plans. And there are also, compared to like years ago, there's a lot more high level camps than there was, say, 10 years ago. So there are a lot of different places where you can get very good strategic and tactical training and prepared for specific fights. So yeah, there is a lot to look forward to in the future. I think we'll see a lot of high-level fights going forward. So yeah, it's a very exciting time to be an MMA fan.
Indeed. Okay, we will move on, I think, and we'll briefly touch upon some of the other fights on the main card. We may as well start with the co-main, Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker. Again, we both said Dan Hooker, so we got this one wrong, although we did both recognise that early, Chandler's got power, he's explosive, and boy was he.
Yeah.
Just I think it was a left hook as he was circling.
Yeah. I think it might have been like, I'm trying to remember, but it might have been the first head punch like he landed. I don't know if that's true, but from what I remember, it seemed that way.
Certainly one of the first.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan Hooker looked very kind of frozen in this fight. He didn't really do much. Like, he didn't try to jab or knee at all.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of kind of like leg kicks he threw, and really was like circling out fairly frantically. But like you can't use that to take it away from Chandler. Chandler looked very good. Obviously very explosive, but I like the way he set it up was brilliant as well. Chandler's known for basically kind of being like a double leg and a big right hand. Like, he's more complex than that, but to kind of reduce its kind of simplicity, that's kind of what he is. So he put a lot of pressure on Hooker and then started throwing the right hand to the body. to kind of catch Hooker as he was circling out, and that is a good setup for like an overhand right. Like if you throw the right hand to the body, it looks like the start of the movement looks similar to an overhand right coming. So Hooker was probably aware of that and was like, right, this could be a setup for an overhand right coming soon, and he was scared of that, so he circled out into the path of what did actually come, which was the left hook. Chandler threw a number of straight rights, and then once he'd established that, kind of surprised Hooker by coming up with the left hook, and it was a great knockout.
Yeah, cracking.
And like, even better because it was against Dan Hooker, who has an absolutely iron chin.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly. I mean the Barboza fight is slightly different in terms of that was a wearing down, but there's not really on his record. There is I don't think he's got a loss to. He's not that is his first knockout loss. So really impressive stuff.
Barboza. Yeah, and like look at the shots he took in the Poirier fight. The man is very difficult to knock out. Really impressive from Chandler. Not that much to talk about clearly because he made fairly quick work of Hooker, but just looks very explosive and dangerous going forward, and doesn't look like a man that's nearly 35.
He looked good.
Yeah, interesting going forward. How would you what would be your preferred way for kind of lightweight to the bookings to shake out at lightweight then?
I mean, I think it really does. I mean, I love to see it, but it really, the power really is in Poirier's hands. If he says, I mean, I've no idea. I'm sure Dana White will or has open discussions with McGregor. To us, it probably does hinge around McGregor as well. If McGregor says he wants timeout, then you sort of move him aside. If he says he wants the trilogy, then obviously you go to Dustin. I think, as we've said, he probably would take that trilogy, maybe over a title shot.
I think he might, yeah.
I think he might. I mean, he has already won the belt, albeit in an interim manner, but I think he'd take that for the payday, and I think he'd back his chances of winning.
Yeah.
So if Poirier's out of the picture, I'd maybe run Chandler Gaethje for a number one contenders to fight Oliveira. I think Oliveira has to get the title shot next.
Yeah.
I think Oliveira's in there. And if Poirier wants the title fight, then it's Poirier Oliveira. I think Chandler Gaethje is perhaps one I'd like to see. Chandler Ferguson maybe. But I think coming off a win, I think Gaethje coming off the loss, albeit from the title, I think that seems like the fight to make.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with you. I think that it depends on what Poirier does and if he fights McGregor next. But if Poirier wants to go for the title, then I think you make Oliveira Poirier for the title. And then, you make Chandler Gaethje, because I think that would be absolute fireworks. That'd be a banger for as long as it lasted. So, I think that would be my preferred way. And then, obviously, depends on what McGregor wants to do. He might want to fight Poirier. He might want to fight Nate, which, to be honest, I don't think that's terrible at this point. Like, Nate is really kind of washed. Like, he's really not at his best, I wouldn't say now. But you can make that fight kind of, it'd be fun.
Yeah. Who does he go for? not to return back to McGregor too much. But if he doesn't take Nate, or Nate, perhaps, I don't know, that doesn't come to fruition, and Poirier takes the title fight, and McGregor still wants to work his way up, what, Ferguson?
I think Ferguson, if he does indeed fight, obviously, then probably Ferguson.
That probably is the biggest high-profile name.
That is, and it'd be, I think that, as bad as Ferguson's looked recently, I still think that could be interesting, because as bad as he'd looked, he's still dog tough, like insane toughness on Ferguson. So McGregor, I don't know if McGregor could knock him out early. He obviously could, but you don't know. And then down the stretch, if Ferguson's anything like near his best, you'd have to think he'd be an absolute nightmare for Conor. Like 4th and 5th round Ferguson like against an absolutely knackered McGregor. I don't know. That just, like, depends how Ferguson looks and if he is like completely done, basically. But I think that could still be a good fight if Ferguson's like near his best.
Yeah, definitely. For Hooker, there's still fights out there. I mean, I would just say, as you said, he did look nervous. I think the his lack of ability to use his length, especially against a guy like Chandler, who is a smaller guy at 155, is so bad. And he's I don't know how long he's been with, or perhaps how long he spends with City Kickboxing. I thought he was there
I think
he's been there for a
full
while,
time.
but
Yeah.
it does surprise me how, and obviously, not every fighter is the same, and that's not really how these sort of teams work. But I am surprised about how bad he is at using his range, and the lack of a jab compared to, you look at some of the other guys he's working around, and I just think like a jab and sort of being able to use his range would make him. I mean,
Like,
I don't think, I mean, and he still does, but I think there's obvious improvements there, and
yeah, like he is huge, and like he's decent from range. Like he jabs and he leg kicks fairly well, but his strengths are generally like kind of really in tight, which is kind of unexpected for someone of his size. Which is weird to think how big he is, considering he used to be a featherweight. It's absolutely crazy.
Jesus.
So yeah, like he's good from range. He's just not as good as you'd expect him to be. I think is the issue. So yeah, there are still fights for Hooker out there. He could fight Tony Ferguson. I don't know. He could beat him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can make a lot of good fights at lightweight at the minute. So as you can pretty much always. So we'll see. We'll see what happens going forward.
We'll see.
Just to close out the kind of lightweight discussion, Chandler looked very impressive, very scary, and I was absolutely over the moon for Dustin Poirier. That's my summary.
Exactly. Joanne Calderwood, Jessica I wasn't quite the 29-28 split decision I had, but Calderwood got the win, which is always good. This is definitely not a Jessica I fan club.
No,
I think you'd be hard pressed to find that anyway, to be honest.
I think like it was actually a decent fight. No thanks to Jessica I. So all thanks to Joanne Calderwood for being good and interesting and making that a fun fight. And Jessica I, even though she tried to make the last round fairly boring by just smothering her against the cage, I can't quite remember it, but I think Calderwood won every round on my scorecard, as she did on two judges. So very happy. I really like the way that Calderwood is like a very good teeper for MMA. You don't see it too often, but she's very good with that. And then kind of her clinch entries are very reliable for her. Well, they were against Jessica I, at least. I don't know how much of a test that is. But like she managed to kind of really close and grab the clinch and maintain a dominant position, like pretty much whenever she wanted. And then she ate I up in the clinch, really. So I actually really enjoyed this performance from Calderwood. I do like her. She's terribly slow. Which is why she'll struggle like at kind of the top of the division, because she's just not the athlete she needs to be. But she's fun and I like her nonetheless.
Yeah, I would very much agree with sentiment. I fear for her in a possible Shevchenko fight. I don't know what that would be.
Don't do that. That's just mean. She's so nice.
we will see. Just but yeah, good for Martin. Yeah, it certainly showed an impressive outing. Muradov Sanchez, I don't have too much to say on that. I was surprised. I was surprised it's got on the main card. Given that I had a look. It was a fun fight, but I looked at Max. I was like, I couldn't remember Makhmed Muradov at all, and I looked at all of his fights. He's only had 2 fights for this against Alessia Di Chirico, who fought last time, and Trevor Smith, and both of them had been on the early prelims. So he must have been loving a main card on a McGregor pay-per-view, having gone from sort of early prelims on random fight nights. But yeah, good win for him. He looked good.
Yeah, I think
victory.
Kind of what I took from this was kind of, I think it was, what's his name? Muradov kind of set up his, like, he really kind of built off the threats that he established. Like, he kind of introduced the threat, hit Sanchez with it a few times. Sanchez would kind of get the read on it, and then Muradov would introduce something else. Like, so Muradov would hit him with the jab, and then after establishing that, he'd introduce the straight. So I think Muradov did that well, kind of introducing threats, kind of building on things that you establish. And then also kind of this fight kind of really demonstrated how much kind of tiredness can make an impact. Like, Sanchez was fairly fine taking the shots until then suddenly he wasn't. It was like he took a number of like heavy shots from Muradov, and then early in the fight he was fine. It was like, yeah, that's okay. I can see it coming. I can react to it. I'm not tired. I can take it. I can fight through it. Whatever. Then as soon as like third round comes round, you're a bit more tired. You've taken quite a few. Suddenly one really hurts you, and then like he followed him with the flying knee. So yeah, that was just, I thought it was quite a fun fight, quite interesting. Yeah, pretty decent. Both quite exciting.
Yeah, the only other one on the main card, which we'll quickly talk about, is Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Ribas. I know we're on a McGregor fight card, so none of these are going to get the attention they deserve. But I mean, a Herb Dean classic, really. I mean, Jesus. I mean, this is bad. I mean, we talked about the other week. I can't remember what fight that was.
There are too many bad Herb Dean stoppages these days for me to remember them all.
I mean, this was bad. Fell face first. Ribas after the I'm not quite sure what shot it was. I can't remember, but how on earth when Rodriguez didn't pull away, that fight wasn't stopped. I have no idea. But a good performance from her, and that is some power she's got on her. You don't very often see that at flyweight or strawweight even.
And like against a really good opponent as well. She doesn't seem to have the best takedown defense, which could trouble her. I think who's ahead of her? How many good takedown artists are there at strawweight? There's a few.
Tatiana Suarez, if she fought, I don't know. I think she's been out with knee injuries for a while.
I think she's been out for years.
I don't think she fought. I think last time she fought was like mid 2019 or something.
I think it was.
June 2019.
Yeah, she's been out for ages. So like she'd probably wreck Marina Rodriguez, and then Rose can be a decent. She's more throws and not particularly physical, but and then what's her face? One who's going to fight Valentina. She'd also probably wreck her as well. I forgot her name now. I can't believe that. But yeah, so it'd be interesting. But on the feet, she's very dangerous and can be a very good addition to the strawweight division.
Cool. Good stuff. I mean, there's other fights. I mean, Sayukin, I think that's how you say it. Look good. Tavares looked good. That's the first time he's fought in a while, but we won't touch them too much. There's not really a whole lot else. Well, we had a brief bit of MMA as a serious sport with Ben Askren versus Jake Paul in the week, which we won't talk about too much because we'd rather not. All I'll say is, as I said before we came on, Ben Askren is pound for pound some of the worst hands I've seen in the UFC, and I do worry about him in a boxing fight. I do worry if he's going to sort of instinctively reach for a single leg at some point.
Oh, that'd be funny if he did. But no, Ben Askren's probably going to get knocked out, and that's depressing. It's going to be terribly embarrassing for this like silly sport that we follow. But we love it.
The only thing I'm hoping for is it's sort of like short-term pain but long-term gain is Jake Paul goes in there, batters Askren, and then says, "Oh, Masvidal, look what I did to your boy who you hit the flying knee on." And then Masvidal's like, "Right, son, you're getting it.
And then boxing or MMA, Masvidal smashes him.
Yeah, exactly. That's
so yeah.
you know,
that would be fun, to be fair.
If in a year's time I get to see a bloodied up Jake Paul on the canvas with Jorge Masvidal standing over him, it will all be worth it.
Fair enough. That you've kind of. I'm more optimistic about it now. You've sold me on that narrative.
But I think Jorge Masvidal is not the kind of guy to get involved in YouTube beef. But
not really. I think he might be, to be honest. I could see him doing that. Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all we have for today. As we mentioned last week, there's no card coming up. Obviously they had the midweeker, which I guess sort of kept up their sort of one a week, if you like.
Yeah.
So we'll probably be back next week, maybe to do a sort of preview. I'm not quite sure what's actually no. There were some good ones. We have Sandhagen Edgar, which I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, there are some.
Why that's not the main. Clay Guida, Michael Johnson, I've just seen on there.
Throwback.
Dariush versus Diego Ferreira, which is a nice one.
Diego Ferreira fights again. I'm very happy.
Stamen, Andre Yule, that'd be nice. Molly McCann fights. So yeah, there's a bit of, and obviously Overeem Volkov, which is the main event. So I think we might be back to have sort of a quick preview of that next week. But yeah, unless you have anything else, Jack.
No, that's it from me.
All right, lovely. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Stay safe as always. And yeah, we will see you next week.
See ya.